Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made my DPS meter for my roguelike in Unreal Engine 5 using just blueprints. It's a pretty clean system, it's simple to build, and it feels really good in game because it tracks your recent damage and instead of just using a slow average number. So when you start hitting hard, the damage shoots up fast, and when you stop attacking, it drops back down naturally. So on my bottom right on my screen, you can see the DPS text, and this is the DPS meter. This is what shows the damage. So if you see me hitting the person, you see it's doing the DPS, and it is subtracted by the time frame that I have, which is 3 seconds. And it updates, and if I stop hitting, it will go back down to 0. So let's say I get crazy stats and do a lot of damage, the DPS will be congruent to that, and it'll show, as you guys are seeing. So that is because the system is only looking at recent damage instead of a time window, so it feels reactive and way better for combat. The whole system is built around one simple concept. Every time I deal damage, I store two things: the damage amount and then the time it happened. That's when I update the DPS, I check all stored events, I remove the old ones, I add up recent damage, and I divide by the DPS window. And that's what gives me the rolling DPS. Instead of showing one lifetime damage number, this shows you what you're doing right then and there. And that's why it's reactive and it's really good. So the first thing to make in the system is making the structure, which is the ST damage event structure. It's going to have two variables for damage amount and timestamp, both floats. So basically every hit becomes its own little damage event. So let's say I hit for 40 right now. It will store that damage, that 40 damage, and then they'll store the current time of when it happened. So let's say I hit again half a second later, it then becomes another event. And then these get added into the array. So the next thing we need to do is create the components. I named mine BBC DPS meter component. And then we are going to create the variables. We have the recent damage events, which is that structure we just made, and make it into an array. And then we have the DPS window. This is the this controls how many seconds we want to count. Then we have the raw DPS. This is the calculated DPS value. Then we have the display DPS. This is the one that the widget reads and it shows on screen. And then we have the interim speed and the update interval. So for the first function, we have the report damage for DPS. This is a very simple function. So first thing we do is we pass in the damage amount, and then we check if that damage amount is less than if it's greater than 0. And if it is, then we will make the structure, and we will get game time in seconds and pass that in for the timestamp, and then we'll pass it in for the damage amount. And then we add it to our recent damage events array. And if it's the damage is less than 0, well, we don't want to read it, so it's false, and we just return it. Unless you do want to read it, then you just get rid of this condition. And that's all this is for this function. Then we will do the update DPS function. This is where the math is. So we need to create some local variables first. So we'll create current time, we'll create total recent damage, and then we'll create valid hits, which is another array of that structure we made. So first we're going to clear the valid events. Then we will set the total recent damage to 0, so clearing that too. But then we're going to set the time to get game time in seconds. And then we are going to loop over the recent damage events structure that we've had, that array, and we're going to break that. And then we're going to get the current time, that variable right here, which is the get game time in seconds, and we're going to subtract that by the timestamp that we have. And then we're going to check if it's less than or equal to the DPS window that we set. And if it's true, we're going to add that array element into the valid events, and then we're going to set the total recent damage to the damage amount plus total recent damage. And then once that loop is completed, we are going to then set the recent damage events to valid events, and this basically clears the old hits. And then we are going to set the raw DPS to the total recent damage divided by the DPS window. So if we hit for 180 and we want it, well, our DPS window is 3, so we're going to divide it by 3, our DPS would then be 60. And then we're going to set the display DPS to the as an F interp 2, so it'll be smooth. And then we will do DPS display DPS by current, raw DPS by target, and then get world delta seconds by delta time, and then interp speed as the interp speed. Now, That's all it is. It's very simple, but on events we need it to we need to constantly update. So on our event graph, now you could use a tick, but for optimization, I just went for a timer by function name, and instead of doing it every single frame, I did it by 0.1 seconds. So it's optimized at least a little bit. Now, first we need to pass in this damage amount. So however your damage framework is structured, just pass it through. For instance, mine, I have a lot of functions for my damage framework because I'm building a roguelike, but on my process attack hit, I have it right here. And I'm passing in my damage, my attempted damage into the damage amount, and that will show the DPS for me. Your guys' system is going to look different, but just pass in that amount of damage into the function, and it should work like that. Now, we need to create the HUD for it. So we're going to go to my HUD, which is your main HUD, or whatever you want it to be. This is my main HUD, just as one several. And I just put it anywhere for me, because later on I'm going to customize it and add images and whatnot and make it look nice. But for the time being, it's just there for debugging. So I have it on the bottom right, and it's just a text block. That's all I made, was just a text block. So go ahead and make a text block, throw it in your canvas panel, or however you have it set up, and then just make it a variable and title it however you want to title it. And then we're going to go into the graph, and then we're going to go ahead and make a function called update DPS text. So go ahead and do that. And before we do anything, we're going to make another variable, which will be the player ref, and make it your player character, however you have it set up. And then make sure it's instance editable and it's exposed on spawn, because we need to pass those through. So first, we're going to check if the player ref is valid, and if it is, we're just going to do super simple. Get the player ref, get the DPS component you have, get the display DPS, round it, and then add it, format the text, that's how I did it, and then add it, let's set the text to the text DPS. And that should be basically it. And then, then you need to add it to your viewport. So I have it right here. Just on event begin play, just go ahead and create the widgets, and then you need to throw in yourself to the player ref, and then you just add it to the viewport, which is right here. And that should be it. What I like about this setup is that it's clean and it's easy to expand. You can add things like peak DPS, total combat damage, per target DPS. You can add quick colors. You can add better animations, different windows. Like instead of 3 seconds, you can do 1 second DPS, 5 second DPS, you can 10 second DPS, however you want it set up. And because it's event based, it scales really nicely. And that's basically how I made a DPS meter in Unreal Engine 5. It's a really simple system. It feels really good in gameplay. It's easy to build onto later. So if this helped you guys out, if you liked it, please drop a like and subscribe. I'm building a full roguelike in UE5, and I'm posting systems like combat, loot, spawning, mutations, and UI, and more. I really hope you guys appreciate the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.